All right, welcome to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today we are beginning the coverage of Hurricane Laura, and it just recently upgraded to a hurricane just a few hours ago. And the reason why we're going to start coverage on it now is a couple of things. The track of this storm continues to trend to the west. Before, we were talking about the storm, the last time we did a broadcast, we were talking about the storm going over Cuba and holding its organization going into the Gulf. But this storm actually went just south. The eye of the storm, anyway, was just south of Cuba. So it sat over water pretty much every day. Minimal land interaction so far. But now Laura is a hurricane, and it is entering the Gulf Coast upon this moment. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up too was that Marco is not even an afterthought right now. No one's talking about Marco. And the bad news about that is that Marco fizzled out to a tropical depression as it approached land. So you can see Marco, actually I think you could see Marco a little bit on the infrared, and it looks like Marco, according to the infrared, it could be somewhere, let me get the handy dandy, Marco is somewhere right in here. And this rain band, this is what we saw yesterday with Marco when it was approaching New Orleans, the panhandle of Florida. Florida was getting pounded with heavy storms. Now this storm is moved a little bit towards Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia versus the Florida Panhandle. And so it would put Marco right around here. Now, the reason why it's kind of a bad thing that Marco is not being talked about and came in kind of weak is that when we were last time on the air, I was telling you guys that if Marco's weak, then that sets the stage for Laura to be a stronger hurricane and a bigger impact. And the reason why I'm saying that, and actually there was a comment in the last broadcast where the commenter had said that with Marco, depending on how strong it gets as well, we could be looking at enough upwelling to cool the waters down a little bit. And that was a very, very good point. That's something I hadn't thought about. Unfortunately, unfortunately for Laura's sake anyway, Marco did decrease to a depression, and it wasn't that much of a storm. So with that being said, we have minimal upwelling, okay? There is no dry air near Laura, nor wind shear. And this storm continues to track west towards Houston now. Each day, each time I've seen the update for this, the storm track changes little by little to go to the west. And let's take a look at the storm track right now, as it is forecasted to be a Category 2, or Category 2 upon landfall. I'm not so sure about that. A lot of forecasters have changed that now to a possible Category 3, but what concerns me on this track is the fact that it continues to move further west. And that means Houston now is in the conversation here, and that's not good. But this thing continues to track west, and why is that a big deal? Mainly because this thing is traveling a little bit further now. And that is giving it more time over the very warm Gulf. Before, the thinking was this thing was going to happen over Cuba, like I had said. This storm was supposed to travel over land, hold its somewhat organization, and then affect the New Orleans area, not as far as a trek. So it stayed over water. It is now in the Gulf, and it continues to possibly hit Houston, Beaumont. Lake Charles is in a good spot right now to pick up on this as well. So the concern raised now is the Euro model, which is showing some rapid intensification as it approaches land. So I said this a couple days ago on our last broadcast that I wouldn't be surprised to see a Category 3. Not to be alarmist, but I'd say it's going to be at least a 3, if not the possibility of seeing a very strong 4, maybe even a 5. And that has also been uttered on this morning's Weather Channel. Jim Cantori made the quick mention how he feels that with the kind of rapid intensification that the Euro is showing, that they are concerned. If this thing continues to track to the west like it has, that could be big problems. And like I said, let me see if I can find a map of the current temperatures of the waters right now. Let's go ahead and update this. All right, so that is current. And go ahead and zoom in here. I think I am zoomed in all the way. Okay. Guys, look at the Gulf. And I apologize, my handy dandy arrow is not here right now, but look at the Gulf of Mexico near Texas. And the waters are already warm enough past Cuba. Average temperature right now that this storm is located in is 87 degrees right now. I'm sorry, 86 is the average and 87 is the temperature max where this storm is located right now. That bright pink is temperatures near or exceeding 90 degrees. Upper 80s, it's going to be in a little bit cooler water. It's below the mid 80s as it continues to trek across the Gulf, but right as it gets to that pink shaded area, the outer limits, we're talking about 85 and up, and then the brighter pink could be as high as 90 degrees. So this storm continues to trek west. It is being basically pulled into the more favorable water conditions. So this thing it's almost being drawn in to where it can breed the most. But right now, let's go ahead and give you an update on where we are. Actually, we got another update coming here in about 11 minutes, but as of right now, we are looking at Hurricane Laura as a Category 1. Winds sustained at 75 miles per hour, and the pressure right now is at a 991, moving west-northwest at 17 miles an hour. Now we've got an update now in 10 minutes. So Category 1, and right now the track, now early Thursday is when they think we will see landfall, and right now we're looking really at the border of Texas. That's right, Beaumont, Texas, Lake Charles. If this track stays where it is now, those are the focus areas. But we have almost 2 days of this storm moving across the Gulf, and as warm as it is, the concern is that if it goes a little bit, even if it goes just a tick more to the west, Houston is now going to have to prepare for a major landfall hurricane. The good news is that it is also moving pretty fast. 17 miles per hour is a pretty good clip here. Now, they are predicting this thing to slow down as it gets closer to land, which is common with hurricanes. And that's where they think that the possibility for development into a Cat 4, possibly Cat 5, is possible because of the storm being stalled out over very, very warm waters. And if this storm continues to track west, each time they update it, it's a tick more. This could easily become a Cat 5. Only because of the water temperature, the lack of dry air around this storm, and there's no wind shear to tear this thing apart. And this is why we watch things like La Nina, when we know with La Nina they don't produce as much wind shears. So, and that's why AccuWeather and others up their hurricane forecast this year around July, because of the stronger possibility of a La Nina developing. And therefore, they upped the forecasts, and right now, it's pretty active. And this is not the only storm we have to talk about. There's one right behind Laura that has also formed, and it's too early really to talk about because we're trying to figure out what we're going to see with Laura. Let's see if I can find it, but let's continue the update here. Key points of this storm right now is going to be forecast path could still shift. Intensity forecast changes are possible. Surge in wind and rain impacts extend outside the forecast path. So, in other words, we're not just looking at, the direct hit from where Laura is supposed to land. They're looking at the possibilities outside of the cone here. And let me try to find you guys. There's a cone. So, in other words, it is possible to see wind and rain bands, even though they've got this thing targeted for the border of Texas and Louisiana. New Orleans could still see some high winds from this, some rain and storm surge. Now, what are we looking at as far as storm surge, you ask? And the other day, I was talking about New Orleans with the threat of getting anywhere from 3 to 5 on the storm surge, and then dealing with Laura on top of that. Marco really did fizzle out, and that's good. I mean, we don't need a direct hit from New Orleans. We don't need any rain like that for New Orleans. So I'm glad that Marco has kind of become a non-issue now. There is heavy rain in the south from Marco, but it was not the impact that we thought it was going to be. So good news. I think we dodged a bullet on the first one. The second one, though, and like I said, I said this the other day, that if we did get a weak Marco, that it could set the stage for a very strong Laura. And unfortunately, we're looking at that right now. Now, as far as storm surge right now, what are we looking at? Along the coast of Texas, Houston, right now, you're only in the 2 to 4 feet area if you live off the coast near Houston. And then the storm surge warnings kind of go up from there. Beaumont, Texas, near the coast there. Again, I'm not saying Beaumont's going to get a storm surge. I'm just saying so you can graphically figure out what I'm talking about here. Along the coast near the border of Louisiana and Texas, near Beaumont, you're looking at a possible 7 to 11 feet of storm surge with Laura. And that's for right now. Now, there's also another if that's thrown in with these storm surge numbers, and that is if this happens during high tide. So that's kind of the silver lining of this forecast, is that if the peak surge happens during at high tide, and that's a really tricky forecast, this is what we're looking at. So if anything, this could be just the worst case scenario, possibly. Again, this is basing this off of the current conditions of the storm, and if it's just a Category 3. If it's a Category 5, we could see those storm surge numbers go up or stay the same, because if it's not happening during high tide, a Cat 5 storm certainly will bring a 7 to 11 feet storm surge. But think about if this is a Category 5 and it happens during high tide. This could be some very, very, very I mean, we're already talking life-threatening storm surge flooding right now from Morgan City all the way to the border of Texas and Louisiana. And then if you live in New Orleans, you're only looking at a 2 to 4 foot storm surge chance with a 3 to 5 possible from Gulfport. And then Grand Island kind of changes it up, 4 to 6 feet of storm surge expected there. Still concerns there in southern Louisiana. But a lot of ifs, guys. This is one of the most complex forecasts I've had to see for a storm. Because right now, and the update's coming in about 3 minutes, but right now, the current track of this storm, the bullseye is almost right on the border of Texas and Louisiana. And, you know, interesting fact to mention too, Lake Charles is down almost 4 inches on their yearly rainfall total. But this is not the way you want to play catch up. But right now, they stand to surplus for the year after Hurricane Laura moves through. The wind for Wednesday night, and this storm is going to be making landfall on Thursday morning. So the wind is going to be very, very, very intense starting Wednesday night and continue to get worse. Now, there is some talk on Weather Channel and other weather outlets that this storm and its path is a reminiscence of Ike in 2008. And I can tell you this, I remember Ike. I was living in Southwest Ohio, and the insane part was the sun was out, beautiful day, and the winds were just incredibly high. Knocked out power for our area for over a week. Transformers galore were blowing up everywhere. So, in this path, if you look at the cone, it is a lot like Ike right now. In fact, it's just barely hitting the southwest edge of Ohio, according to where Laura could be by Saturday. And then, but again, this forecast has been shifting all over the place. So it is possible it will change. And now the latest update is in, and the storm is starting to slow down already, which to me is an indication that this storm almost could be at a grinding halt by the time it reaches the coast of Texas, and hopefully not Houston. Category 1, still 75 miles on the wind. Pressure has dropped just 1 millibar to 990, but it did slow down to 16 miles an hour. Not a big deal, but the further it moves on this track, and if it continues to slow down, this will give it peak maximum strength to develop into a strong Cat 3 or even possibly a strong Cat 4. I'm not brave enough to go out and say a Cat 5. The possibility does remain, and I guess it just depends on how slow this storm is moving by the time it gets to that very, very, very warm waters just off the coast of Texas and western Louisiana. That's the biggest thing. So a lot of things to still watch, guys. It's very early in the development, but is definitely worth mentioning today if you are now living, if you are in the areas of Houston, Beaumont, and western Louisiana. You need to start making preparations on evacuating at this time. Thankfully, the folks that left Louisiana, parts of New Orleans, if they heeded the warnings, they're probably glad they left. It wasn't terrible, windy and rainy, but nothing, crazy, and that's good, But when we do these alerts, we would rather be overdoing the caution because storms like Laura now, which were believed to only be a Cat 1 at landfall just 2 days ago, now we're talking about a Category 3 possibility, and some are reaching out and saying this could be a Cat 5. And it is slowing down. It is going over much warmer waters. It is not fighting wind shear. And there is no dry air in place. Guys, this is the recipe for a big storm. And a lot of people are already saying this will be a major landfall here. So we will continue to monitor this here on the Grand Solar Minimum channel. I'm not sure if we're going to leave anything live just yet. We are still about a day and a half away from landfall, but I thought it was worth mentioning today that we could be seeing a pretty serious storm here. And with the wind that's forecasted with it, 115, we need about 5 more miles to make it a Cat 3 at this point. So I think they're playing it safe and forecasting Cat 3. Yeah, maybe straight up to 145 Houston bound. I agree with that. Pete, want to say hello to some of our folks out there today. Knife Collector, good to see you. Hello, Pete. Matt, how's it going, buddy? Thank you all for tuning in for this update. And like I said, we're probably going to be a little bit more active in the next 48 hours and a little bit beyond, just to kind of verify and monitor the situation. Evelyn, thank you for joining us today over here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Melody, good to see you as well. And of course, we have the lovely Mari running the chat. Say hello to her. Give her a hard time. She likes it when people are, okay, maybe not. Just joking. Anyway, but so continue to check back. We will pop in and out with updates on this storm when needed. Right now, we are seeing Fishing Magician. Good to see you, bud. And Randy. Hello, sir. Yeah, Lake Luzerne. That's not too far away from where we are. So he has Fishing Magician. By the way, guys, if you want to just look at nature cams up there in the mountains there in Lake Luzerne, pretty neat stuff. Fishing Magician just kind of has cameras set up throughout his area, and it's just kind of neat to watch the nature. But anyway, check him out if you guys like that kind of stuff. But no, continue to check back with the Grand Solar Minimum channel, as we will do updates as needed. Like I said, Laura right now slowing down. The latest update on Laura is still 75-mile-an-hour winds, moving west-northwest at 16 miles per hour with a 990 pressure. It is still a Category 1 for the time being, but Laura is moving into much, much warmer waters. And the ingredients for this thing to be at least a Category 3 is in play. How much stronger it gets just depends on how much slower this storm gets as it gets closer to land. So we will continue to monitor this until later on today or possibly tomorrow morning. Guys, take care, be safe out there, and we will talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.